Hello, everyone, and I hope you're all healthy and staying safe during this period of COVID-19. Welcome to SCORE Fairfield County's live webinar on how to learn Zoom in 60 minutes. We've added this webinar as most of us are primarily working remotely, and we felt that we could all benefit from learning more about how to use the Zoom platform for our video meetings and webinars. I'm Bob Hogan, the webinar coordinator today and a business mentor here at SCORE Fairfield County. I'm going to be your host, and our presenter is Belinda Wasser. More on Belinda in just a minute, but first some brief information on SCORE. SCORE is a national organization with over 11,000 volunteers across the country, and we are part of the Small Business Administration of the federal government. In SCORE, locally here at SCORE Fairfield County, we have over 130 volunteers with a wide range of industry, process, and subject matter expertise. And we offer three primary value-added services to small business owners. We offer free one-on-one counseling, which is typically face-to-face, but in these times it's by video, and we can also do telephone and email. And you can access that individual counseling by the Request a Mentor link that's on our website or using the link that you see on the screen in front of you. We also offer a wide range of educational workshops and webinars, and in these times it's all webinars, and we offer roughly 150 throughout the year. And lastly, we have an extensive array of resources on our website, including access to subject matter experts. Our next live webinar will be on Tuesday, April 21st at 12 noon, and that topic is how to get going with Google, with Nalini Gulzaran presenting. And you can find more specifics again on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. And I must also point out that we have a large number of archived webinars on a wide range of business topics that are on our website as well. Some useful information about today's event. We have set aside time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. If you have a question, please use the chat feature at any time during the presentation. It's located generally in the lower part of your screen, and you can type that question in and Belinda will take them at the end. We will end sharply at 1 o'clock to respect your time. The session is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be available on our website within the next couple of days. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Belinda Wasser, founder of Rocket Girl Solutions. Belinda is a business workflow and logistics expert with 25 years of experience and is hired by small businesses to act as their part-time business manager. She helps her clients make more money, more efficiently, and with less stress via streamlining and improving systems, online payment setup and management, social media engagement, website builds, and marketing automation. It's now my pleasure to turn it over to Belinda. Belinda, it's all yours.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our talk today on Zoom. I was very excited when SCORE asked me to present on this topic, especially because I think, as it was mentioned, we're in a time now where there's lots of people like me. I've been using Zoom for years, but there are a lot of people that all of a sudden need to use Zoom and they don't know how. And I imagine there are a lot of people that are not technically inclined, and it can be frustrating and and also, when we're used to managing ourselves in real life, in real life meetings, and all of a sudden we have to do it virtually, we want to maintain our professionalism and, our mojo. And so that's what I want to help you with today. Really show you how to use the basic features of Zoom, how to schedule meetings, how to mute yourself, how to sit, how to put the camera. I'm going to tell you all of that today, so that when you leave here, you'll have some confidence. And I welcome all questions, so please just put them right in the chat. All right, so Zoom, I'm just gonna tell you guys what Zoom actually is in case there are some real newbies here, which I bet there are. So Zoom is a cloud-based application. So what that means is you don't really download it to your hard drive. You log into your account in a browser, and it can be used for video, audio, and it can be used for collaboration. I'm going to show you all those different ways, also chat and screen sharing. And I have to say, with my work, I used it for screen sharing for years and just recently started using the video portion of it. So you can just pick and choose how you want to use it. And every time you're on Zoom, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be video. you can just use audio, and there's a whiteboard feature as well. Okay, so here we go. Here are some of the ways that I use Zoom. So as I mentioned, screen sharing. So imagine I'm talking to a client and they're in, remote. All of my clients are remote. They're all over the country and in Europe. And so many of them, we've never been side by side. So we've had to adapt to this way of working. So imagine, you're trying to show someone something, an application or a Word document or a PowerPoint like I am in this case. So screen sharing is a very powerful feature of this tool. International audio calls. So, this is something I think a lot of people don't realize as well, is that when Isabel, my client in Switzerland, wants to talk to me, we don't necessarily need to do screen sharing, but it's a way for us to speak to each other without having to use our cell phones and rack up those big cell phone bills. One-to-one video calls are really great. And one way I use this at what time that it had a surprising result. So I was working with a client and we were doing data entry together, which sounds kind of funny, but she was reading, I type pretty fast, and she was reading client information to me and I was typing it into the database. We were moving her from a paper system to a digital system. And by having the video on, I was able to see what she was doing. So I wasn't wondering, is she waiting for me? Has she walked across the room? I could actually see her going through the papers. And while it wasn't necessarily important for me to see that, having the context of what was going on made that a much better experience for both of us. So some of these things are a little bit out of the box. And then group video calls just like this, with or without video. The reason I think today we're not using video is because we have over 120 people on this call today, which is very exciting. But if everyone were to share their video, we might have some trouble with buffering or maybe not being able to hear me as well. So that's why we're doing that today. All right, let's just talk about how much it costs. All right, so, and what's the difference between basic and pro? So, so the free account, you're able to have unlimited one-to-one meetings, and you can stay on as pretty much as long as you want. As soon as you add a second person, so now there's 3 of you on the call, the call is limited to 40 minutes. So on the 41st minute, the Zoom call will turn off and you'll be done. And people have said to me, oh, well, can we just dial back in? Well, you absolutely can. Just to be clear, what that will require is that each person will have to click on the link again, potentially put the password in. So if you're doing that with your family or you're doing that in a casual business setting, that might be okay. If you're doing this professionally, I don't recommend that because Zoom is only $14.99 a month, and which I think is pretty reasonable compared to other tools that are similar. In the paid version, here are the benefits there. So you can have up to 100 participants. And in a case like today, we were able to up the number of participants just for this meeting, which is great. The meeting duration limit is 24 hours. And there's some administrative features that I'm going to show you later. And the one thing that's really cool about this is, see where it says custom personal meeting ID? I'm going to show you that in detail. I'm going to go into my Zoom account and explain how it all works. But that's a primary difference, so that you can have one Zoom link that you give to everybody, and they can use it in meetings with you, regularly scheduled meetings with you. And later I'm going to talk about the good news about that and the bad news. The other thing is with Zoom Pro, you're able to keep a gigabyte of recording in your account. So that's nice if you're having a meeting and you want to share it with someone for a week or so before you delete it. That's a nice feature. There are 2 other options for larger meetings. Since I think most of us are smaller businesses, I didn't go into that in this presentation, but you can certainly go to zoom.us and check those out. The other thing I want to just touch on briefly, if any of you are involved in telemedicine, as you know, there are HIPAA requirements, and there is a HIPAA compliant version of Zoom. And what you would need to do is just contact them for information and pricing if that's something that, that you need to use. Oh, and the other thing is, if you know someone who is in this situation, my email address will be at the end. There's some other options as well, and I can provide those for you. All right, so what do you need to use Zoom? So if you want to use full video conferencing, all you need is a computer with a camera, microphone and speakers, or the Zoom app. So you can have Zoom calls right on your iPhone or your Android. Now, if you click on the link on your phone and you don't have the Zoom app, it's going to take you to a browser, and you can certainly use Zoom like that on your phone, but to get the full benefit of using Zoom, the app is highly recommended, and it's free. All right, so this is the camera that I use. It's the Logitech C920C. It's right around $100. I purchased it online. I've had it for about a year, and it's been great. So if you have this camera, you have everything you need, because the microphone's built in, the camera, everything. And someone asked me last time I gave this presentation, if your computer already has a camera, what's the benefit of having an external camera? And that would just be a matter of quality. So if your camera isn't great, or it's broken, or whatever reason, you can just hook this right on top of any screen you want. And also there's you can put it on a tripod. So let's say you wanted to set it up, you wanted to have a setting where maybe you were interviewing someone, or there were two of you in the room and you weren't in front of the computer. You can, there's a little place to screw a tripod in down at the bottom. The other thing I like about this is it has a privacy feature where you can just take that little flap that's on the top and just click it down, and so you have some privacy. All right, so let's talk about how to join a meeting. Now, as you've heard, Zoom has been in the news quite a bit, I think, and there's some articles that I'm going to share with you, some links throughout the presentation that I invite you to check out later. Maybe I'll do it at the end. So how you join a meeting now depends on how the meeting's been set up. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that when I share my account and show you how it works. All right, so typically what happens is you click the meeting, the link that the host has sent to you. An option to join from your browser will appear. If you're sitting at your desk, and you may be prompted to enter your name. If you're logged into your own Zoom account, I'm pretty sure it does not ask you for your name, but if you're not using your Zoom account, it will ask you for your name. Now, you may be taken into a waiting room. Now, a waiting room is just like what it sounds like. It's a room where all the participants go until the presenter is ready to start the meeting. This is something that is optional. Right now, the default is that Zoom requires, they enabled the waiting room, and they enabled that you are using passwords. You can turn that off. I'm going to show you how when I show you the back end of Zoom. But so you may be taken into a waiting room, you may be required to enter a password, and you might just click join and go right in. So those are the different scenarios that that are happening. Okay, so now you're in the room, and so someone's asking a question, which is good. How does one use the iPhone as a host on Zoom? I actually do not know the answer to that question, but that is interesting. That's something to look up, because sometimes some of us might get stuck, right, somewhere, and we need to do that. So that's a good question. All right, so how do you join the audio? There are two ways of joining the audio. As soon as you join the room, this little box is going to pop up, and you can either join with computer audio, and in order for you to do that, you're going to need a microphone and speakers, so you can speak and then you can hear the other person. If you click on test speaker and microphone right here in the center under the big blue button, you're going to be able to test and see if that's working. And if you're new to this, I recommend that you do that. The other option is that you can use the phone. So here are all of the different phone numbers you can choose from. You can see the meeting ID and the participant ID, and those are important to use to get yourself connected to the meeting properly, and so that the host knows it's actually you. Let me explain that. Without the participant ID ties you to your registration and your name. So that's how it all pulls together. So the participant ID is important for that reason, and the meeting ID is so that you actually go into the right Zoom room. All right, so now let's look at the audio controls. So if you hover over the screen where Zoom is, you'll see a black bar appears down at the bottom. Over on the left-hand side, you'll see this. You'll see your name and you'll see join audio, start video. If you click here, you're going to have an option to test your speakers and microphone, and you're going to have a chance to look at your audio settings. Let me show you what that looks like this, okay? So let me tell you just one thing. I used Zoom for a really long time without going into all these settings. The complications that are in the world right now with people, you know, taking advantage of other people's Zoom rooms and things like that have caused me to look more deeply into the settings. But for the most part, this is for your knowledge. It's a lot of information. Feel free to watch the recording as you need this. So Zoom is really simple, and it can be as easy as you click the link, you go in, you type the password, and you're there. So I'm going into a lot of the details, but so just keep that in mind because it can be overwhelming. But here is where you would change the speakers and the speaker and the microphone. For example, if you have an external camera, but there's also one on your computer. Most of these things I just left as the default. Here's a cool super user tip, and that is if you mute yourself in the meeting, which is a good practice, and you want to speak, you just press the space bar down, and while it's pressed down, you can speak. So that's a nice way to be respectful during the meeting, keep yourself on mute, but then not have to fumble around with the mouse and trying to unmute yourself and when you want to speak. So keep that in mind. That's a good thing to know. Okay, so now we're going to talk about video, and you're going to hover and then click on this little caret right here, and you're going to have 3 different options show up. One is select a camera, one is video settings, and the other is choose a virtual background. So we're not going to go into the virtual background in detail today, although I will tell you that you can upload an image and put it behind you. So like, you know, a brick wall, an image that you purchase of an office, because all of us right now probably don't have the ideal setting in our home office for our boss to be, you know, in our home. So that's one thing to consider. Is the virtual background, and that's easy to set up. If you look at it, you'll totally understand how to do it. You just upload it, an image. All right, so here are the controls. Once you go to look at the controls by clicking on that caret for video, you'll see here again, the camera's up at the top. Enable mirror effect, that's by default. What that means is when you see yourself on the screen, it'll look like you're in the mirror, which is much more natural than having it flipped. So if something doesn't seem right about looking at yourself, check that up, or check that box. Most of the other things I think you can just leave as they are. However, this is the pro tip here. If you click this box, it's going to touch up your appearance. So I don't know exactly what it does. It probably softens the camera a little bit, but if you were to see me, you don't even really need to wear makeup. It really makes you look great if you're concerned about that at all. All right, so I'm just going to look at the questions for 1 second. Okay, so someone has a question about hosting and attending a meeting. All right, that's a really good question. So today, SCORE is hosting the meeting and you are attending. So you have limited controls and you're not able to end the meeting. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, but that's a good question, and I will be more clear about that as I show you some other pieces. Jane wants to know if you can link the Zoom account from the desktop to phone. Yes, so you would log into the Zoom account on your phone with the same credentials. You would log into your account on your computer, and you would be, you know, it's all the same thing. Sort of like when you do online banking, you know, you log into your account on the desktop, but you log into your same account on your phone. So it's kind of like that. Okay, great. All right, let's keep going. Okay, now if you hover over the middle of the screen and this black bar will appear again, and that's, you know, a lot of people will say, oh, I lost my Zoom. So all you need to do is just hover over the screen. The other thing, if someone says to me, I lost my Zoom, if you hover over the taskbar, the tray, at the bottom of your computer, you'll see a little blue icon with a little movie camera. You can click that and get your Zoom back. You can find that window. You can also maximize it so that it's big. So if you're with someone and they say something like, my Zoom window is really small, just gently say, well, you can maximize that. You can see more, because it is confusing and there's a lot going on. All right. So now I'm going to step you through each one of these controls. So someone wants, okay. All right, here we go. So if you click on invite down in the bar, when you're already in a meeting, you are inviting someone to your existing meeting. I'm going to show you how to set up a new meeting, but it's not here. What you're doing here is, let's say you're talking to, your manager or your partner, business partner, and you say, oh my gosh, Bob should be here. What you're going to want to do is click on one of these circles if you want to email the invitation, or you could click here and copy the invitation or copy the URL, and you could just text it to them, or whatever you want to do. This is a feature that I typically don't use. I just use my personal meeting, but I'm going to show you how to do that. The next thing is managing participants. There's only one participant here because when I took this screenshot, I was the only one in the room. But if you hover over the Zoom room now and you look at participants, depending on how SCORE set that up, you may or may not be able to see them. But if you're hosting a meeting, you absolutely will be able to. And this is also the place where you mute everyone and unmute them if you're running a large meeting. All right, in the middle, there's something called polls. If you click on polls, you can walk yourself through. It's pretty straightforward. But imagine if I could have had a poll today to see how many people were beginners at Zoom, how many were used to working from home, how many are newly working from home, and it would give me an idea of who was in the Zoom room. You can also ask questions. Let's say you're giving a webinar on a specific topic and you wanted to find out how people handle a certain situation. You can do that as well. It's a nice way to make it interactive, but it's not necessary. In fact, in all my years of using Zoom, I have not used polling. And then you can share, you don't have to, but you can share the results. So that's also a nice way for people in the room to kind of get an idea of where everyone else stands on whatever that particular question is. Okay, so now let's talk about screen share, because screen share is something that is used a lot, and it's also, I think, how people have been Zoom bombing the rooms, right? The Zoom rooms. So I want to go into detail about that. So I have 3 screens, which is why you see 3 screens. So I get to choose which one I'm going to share. There's also a whiteboard feature that if you click on whiteboard, it takes you really to a whiteboard with a black pen, and you can write with the mouse just like you're holding a pen. The iPhone, iPad, that's sort of an advanced tip, and I'm going to send you all a link in the chat later on about how to do that, but it's really pretty simple, and that could be really great if there's something on the phone that you need to talk to your client about, or instead of taking a picture of it, or if you're walking them through, say you're working on some kind of app, together. So that is a pro feature, and you won't see that there unless you enable it and install it. Okay, someone says which screen? Oh, the video. Okay, so the video controls, I'm just going to answer that. So the question is, where are the video controls and polling accessible? So if you hover over your Zoom screen, you'll see that black bar. Right in the middle, you'll see the word poll. You click that and you'll be walked through how to create your poll. All right, and video controls, if you hover over your Zoom window, you look over in the far left and you'll see mute or unmute, and then you'll see video. To the right of that, there's a little caret. You click on that, and one of the options will be video controls. And that's the same for audio controls. That's where you would do that as well. Okay, now let's talk about something that I believe was just added, and this is if you click on, if you hover over screen sharing, there's a caret, and it brings up, one of the options is advanced sharing options, and this is how you control who can share their screen and who cannot. So here in my settings, I say that only one participant can share at a time, although you can have multiple participants share depending on what you're using Zoom for. And then here, mine is set to all participants. Now, if I were hosting this Zoom meeting right now, I would have that at host only. But because I'm using Zoom in collaboration with my clients, it's okay with me if they share their screen. In fact, I want them to be able to. And then there's this third section here, who can start sharing when someone else is sharing, and I have that set to only host. So if I want to go in while they're sharing, I can do that. So that's an important new thing to know about, given where we are in the world right now. Okay, so there's a question. Sometimes my audio doesn't work on my Android phone during Zoom meetings. Why does that happen? You know, I don't know, but what I would do is restart your phone. It could be that this is what I would do. I would close all apps using your audio. So if you've got Waze open or Pandora or something like that, turn all of those off, because they might be kind of virtually holding on to your audio. So try that first, because I've had that happen on my iPhone. How do you switch between the camera on you and the PowerPoint presentation? So I have video off right now. If I were to turn it on, I would show up in the upper right-hand corner on the same screen where I'm sharing my PowerPoint. So I would just show up in a little box right there, so you would see me and you would see it as well. Everybody can move their video boxes around as much as they want. You can put it on a different screen. You can move it to the top, the bottom if it's in the way. So you have control over that, where it is on your screen. And we're going to talk more about screen sharing and what that looks like. Not screen sharing, video, windows, and how, you know, the different ways that you do that. Okay. In the bottom of Zoom navigation, I am only seeing audio, chat, raise hand, leave meetings. It's possible that those settings are not enabled in your Zoom room. I'll show you how to do that when we get there, so hang tight. And also, it's right now SCORE is in charge of what you see and what you don't see, because this is their Zoom account. And since we're such a large group, you know, things are, and as they should be, they're a little bit buttoned down. Okay. Okay, all right, great. If I'm sharing a screen, can someone edit my page with me? No. They can see it, but they can't edit it. You would want to use something like Google Docs or Google Sheet, where you can both see something and edit it at the same time. So, oh, wait a minute, that's not true. Hold on. You can give keyboard control and mouse control to the other participant. So you can't both be in charge of the mouse or the keyboard, but you can give that over. So that is a way that would work. Okay, so I'm gonna skip that comment right now. Okay, so here's the pro tip. Okay, this is really important, especially if you have a job, probably in a large room, right? So the default is to chat to everyone. Now you can chat to different people. You can enable private chat. You can enable you know, everyone. You can also, like in our Zoom room right now, all the panelists, the people who are facilitating this webinar with me, they can chat privately with me and with each other. So make sure that before you click that, you know who you're talking to. The other thing is, without you knowing, this chat can be saved and downloaded. And sometimes that's very appropriate. You know, like think about chatting with tech support or something, right? So make sure that you only type something in there that you don't mind that everyone sees, even if it's private, okay? So just be careful about that. All right, so there's a question. Okay, I don't really understand that. I'll read the comment. So she needs, I think it's why can't someone see, yeah, if whoever is talking about that question about Martha and her setup, if you could be a little bit more clear, that would be fabulous, because I'm not sure what exactly the question is. Okay, great. Let's just keep going. All right. Now, if you want to record the meeting, you click on the little caret where it says record. And when you do, this is going to pop up. Now you can record on the computer or on the cloud. Now you'll want to check with this, because I heard earlier this week that you can only record on the cloud. You also want to check your settings, and I'll show you where. By default, I'm sure you're, well, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure you're protected that no one else can record your meeting, but there is a way that other people can record. Okay, so one of the panelists is saying cloud only currently, so you can only record to the cloud. And I'm sure that's because they're trying to figure out how to make sure that people do not record without the other people in the room knowing, and then they can share that. I mean, really, the whole world just changed, right? And Zoom is right in the vortex of that. So just check that. Okay. Okay. Now here's another thing you need to know. So right now you can only record it on the cloud, which is great. But at some point, Zoom might let us record to the computer again. And if they do, this is where you find it. It was not intuitive to me where that was. And so that's something good to know. Now I'm going to show you later about, I'm going to show you later where the recordings are if you record to the cloud. So, so just hang tight. All right, let me just see. Okay. All right. Now, if you hover over the Zoom bar again, the Zoom box, I mean the black bar will show up at the end. If you're hosting the meeting, you'll see end meeting. If you are in the meeting, like you all are now, you'll see leave meeting. So that's a big difference for the person who asked the question earlier. What's the difference between hosting and participating? Is that you have that control, and you have the control over who can screen share. You have all of those different controls. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to take a second to just see what's going on in the chat, because we're going to talk about video, and then we're going to jump over to my Zoom account. How best to avoid everyone talking at the same time? I think that's probably just etiquette, and that's I think that's really it. I have been reading a lot of articles lately about and one of my clients actually did a presentation on how to set up a meeting for success. If you're managing a team, you can establish at the beginning, okay, all right, we're going to go around the room and everyone's going to take a turn, and everyone will have time to check in, so that people know ahead of time how it's going to go, since it's not the same thing that used to happen in the conference room. I think that's important too. To really set the stage. All right. Do you hit the record button at the time of setting up the call or at the start of the actual call? You can set Zoom up to automatically record. I don't do that because I'm typically there a few minutes before the people who are in my meeting. And so what it's going to do is just record me on the screen for 5 minutes, and it's just kind of a little ridiculous, and I'm sitting there, twisting my hair or twirling my thumbs. So what I do is I start the recording when the meeting starts, and to remember that, I usually put a Post-it on my keyboard so that I see it and remember to record. Okay, let's see. Is there a way for you to minimize your screen so we can see a live Zoom screen? No, because I'm sort of in Zoom and on Zoom, but I'm going to show you my account, so hang tight. Okay, is polling available in the free or just the pro? I do not know. Why not ask all clients to mute themselves? Yes, absolutely. It is a good practice to ask everyone to mute, especially if there's going to be more than a couple of you. And even in groups that are, I teach in groups of 6 or 8, and what happens is everyone mutes themselves as out of courtesy, and then they hit the space bar when they want to talk. Can you use a virtual background if you don't have a green screen? Yes, but play around with that because it's hard to explain, but depending on your hair and your lighting, and when you move around, sometimes you sort of disappear, you know, like that Avengers movie where everyone like goes up into the sky. It kind of looks like that. So check that out before you do it in a public setting. How do I show photos on a screen? You would just share your screen. And so what's on my screen now is PowerPoint, but it could easily be a Word document. It could be a photo gallery. It could be a website. It can be anything that you see on your computer can be on your screen. And I'm going to show you that. So hold on, I'm going to move a screen over in just a second. Okay, so someone said, in regard to everyone talking at the same time, I heard assigning a host is best. Yes, definitely. You'll want to have a host. And that's the person who, air quote, owns the room, owns the account. Do I have to mute each time someone joins the meeting? I think if you have everybody muted and you click on that button and manage participants, that when people come in, they'll be muted. There's also a setting that I'll show you in a minute that has everyone be muted when they join a room. Okay, so someone said you may already have addressed this, but is there a way to prevent people from recording the presentation? Yes, and I'm going to show you that. Okay, someone wants to know if you can record a different DPI, I think that's what you mean, DPIs, different resolutions. Yes, but that's, I don't know the answer to that. So I would Google that. How do I manage different Zoom meetings when I'm not involved? So you don't, that's okay, that's a good question. How do I manage different Zoom meetings when I'm not involved? For instance, I will schedule them and give them a link to the 2 different participants. They will have the meeting without me doing anything after scheduling the meeting. Technically though, I'm the host. Okay. Okay, so a couple of things. You can't enable waiting room because if you do, you have to be there. They won't be able to record, I'm pretty sure. And I think those are the 2 things you have to think about if you do that. Those are the 2 things. So don't enable waiting room, and they won't, because I've had that happen where I didn't log in, I just went into the meeting and I was the host, but I couldn't record. And I don't know about free or basic about that. Sorry about that. What is a green screen? A green screen is literally a green piece of fabric that you put behind yourself and you can project background. So if you watch the news these days and you know how everybody looks like they're in front of the Capitol building or something, they're not. There's a green screen. Like look at the edges of their hair and you can kind of see it's not really, that's not their background. So that's what a green screen is. Is this similar to GoToMeeting? Yes, it's cheaper and I found it's easier. So I used to use join.me, which is a product of GoToMeeting. And I've used GoToMeeting a really long time ago, but last time I looked, that was $24.99. And I do have a lot of clients that are not really technical and they struggled with it. And so when I found out about Zoom, hardly anybody struggles with Zoom. So that's a good reason. Okay, let's see. Yeah, okay, and so someone was talking, so to the person who was asking the question about, you're the host and you have 2 meeting participants, you don't want to give away your host password and have them log in. That's kind of a bad idea. That's a bad idea globally to share your passwords with people. So I don't recommend that. How does this compare to Skype for Business? I do not know. Well, let me think about that. I haven't used Skype for a really long time. So I don't know exactly. However, I was watching Bill Gates the other day on the news, and he's talking about Microsoft Teams, and that's the Microsoft version of this, I think. So you can, you can certainly check that out. Okay, so someone's saying, if about 30 people participating in a meeting, and want to see each other? Can all the faces be on the screen? Okay, hold that. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Is there a limit of how many people can participate in a Zoom meeting? Yes. So in my account, which is the Pro, $14.99, I think it is, I can have up to 100. Now, when we had over 200 people register for this webinar, I asked the SCORE team, what are we going to do about that? And they said, we bumped it up. So I did notice somewhere on this like third slide that I had, there are options. It said something like need more attendees. So you click that and you probably you have to pay more, but you can do that. And I'm going to, well, let me just answer I'm going to keep going and then I'm going to show you the screens. I have noticed that if you and your computer are far away from the router, the video and audio quality is very bad. That is true, and I'll tell you what I did to solve that because I'm on a video all day long. I have a cable, an Ethernet cable, plugged into my router and plugged into my computer, going down the hall. It's not the best decorator thing I've ever done, but this is more important than that right now. Okay, so hold on one second. I've got a couple more, and then we're going to have to jump because I want to make sure that I can show you the rest of this. Okay, let's see. I'm just reading. Okay, I can't really answer some of these questions right now. Yes, some of these I'm going to answer, so I'm not going to read them. Okay, all right, good. So those were great questions, you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm gonna go kind of fast through the next piece, but don't worry, you're gonna get a replay and you can watch this, and I recommend that. Recommend watch, set it up, pause the recording, and just go through step by step because this is a lot of information, all right? Okay, now we're gonna talk about the speaker view. Now you don't see anybody because we're not using video because this meeting is so large. The active speaker view is the default. Now, the good news about that is if someone's speaking, they're in the big picture. The bad news about that is if someone's not muted and they drop their fork, they're going to be on the video. I heard about a meeting that they were getting email notifications and they were not at their computer. And every time an email note, and they were not muted, every time an email notification came on her computer, the view was taken off the speaker and brought over to this empty desk. So you really want to be careful with your etiquette. Really important. Okay. Now this is the gallery view that you were talking about. Here's the deal with that. You can show, I think you can show up to 49 people in one view. Your computer has to have high enough processing speed in order to do that. In the settings, if you have high enough processing speed, it's an option that you can check. My computer is not up to speed for that. It's 2.5 years old, and I didn't buy a gaming computer, but I bought the second highest computer short of gaming that the store where I buy my computers had. You know, it was pretty robust with a ton of memory, but for whatever reason, I'm not able to do that. So it's available, but you'll just have to see if you can take advantage of it. Okay. Spotlight video is what I really like because the host is in control of it. So if I'm teaching a group and everybody's going to have time in the meeting to go around and speak, I highlight the person speaking until it's time for the other person to speak. So that way that everyone has full attention. There's not any video jumping around. There's a couple ways to do that. One is if you hover over, see the little picture at the top where the woman is green right here, there's a green box. If you hover over the image, which is what you'll see there, you will see 3 dots. If you click on those, you'll see the option for pinning the video or spotlighting the video. The other thing is, see in the upper right here, it says gallery view. That is controlled by the individual on your own computer. So you can click through that when you're in a Zoom room and decide if you want to see everybody, if you want them to be, in a sort of a ribbon, a cross, or a square. So that's just something you can play with. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to bring over here my browser tab. Now this is my, this is my personal Zoom account. Now what I've done, because I know some of you are going to be concerned for my safety, but I changed my password and I changed my personal ID. So this is not really it, that's a fictitious one. But I did do that so that I could really show you around. But I know that there's a particular SCORE counselor who's really into internet safety, and I don't want him to think I'm doing that. So let's talk about what happens. So this is my profile right here. So after you log in, you would go to zoom.us and you would click sign in, and you would be taken to your desktop. Yeah, your desktop, I guess. You click on profile, and this is what you see. One of the reasons it matters about your picture is because if you're on a Zoom call and you turn your video off, that's the picture they'll see. Now, if you don't have a picture, it'll just say the name that you typed in when you entered the meeting. But I think it's a nice touch to have your picture, and it just makes it, more professional. Okay, let's talk about this personal meeting ID. All right, so here's why this is great, and here's why it's not. And then I'm going to show you how to set up individual meetings. Okay, so I have meetings that take place every week at the same time, and I have automated meeting reminders that go out via email to those participants. I use my personal meeting ID for that so that I can schedule those emails for a year, and they just go out and the person clicks on the link and they're right in and they're ready to go. So that's the good news. Now, you don't want to use that if you don't want your participants bumping into each other. And let me tell you what I mean by that. So the other day, I was using my personal meeting ID, and I had back-to-back meetings, and I didn't really think about it. And what happened was at 12:55, 5 minutes before my 1 o'clock meeting, I was still talking to my first client. The second client, being very conscientious and fabulous, decided to come on 5 minutes early because she wanted to be ready for me, and she joined my meeting that was in existence already. So that was okay because they actually turned out to know each other, which was pretty hysterical. But you don't want that to happen, especially if you're doing like telemedicine or it's confidential, or you're in HR, or you have children, children that you're on Zoom with. So you want to be really careful about that. So in my case, I don't have my personal meeting password protected because I live in a pretty small universe of my clients. I would never use my personal meeting ID for a meeting like this, or even one. I gave another webinar recently where there were 63 people. We did not use my personal meeting ID. It's really for my clients, my friends, people who we just want to jump into a meeting fast. So protect that, and know also that if you click edit right here, you can create a password for that as well. All right, and you can change this meeting ID at any time. So let's say that you somehow that gets hacked. You don't need to stress. You just click edit, change it, and you're off to the races again. The only other thing you want to pay attention to on this page is the time zone. Make sure it's your time zone so that you'll be able to. So when you send a meeting invite, it's the right time zone. Okay, so we are a little running out of time, so I'm going to just tell you a couple more things. When you want to schedule a meeting, you click schedule a new meeting. The meeting name is here. Make it something meaningful so people know what it's about. You don't have to enter a description. You can just skip template. I have never used that. The when, the time zone. You can also schedule recurring meetings. So let's say you have a staff meeting every Monday at 10 a.m. You can do that right there. You can make registration required. So that happened to all of you today. You had to register to get into this meeting. And then you can automatically, Zoom will generate a meeting ID automatically and randomly if you click this, or you can use your personal ID number. And you can require a password. So those are all the different ways that you can lock down. The other thing, and I will say this about Zoom, it's pretty clear. You know, when you go through the settings and you look at what they are, it's pretty clear, you know, what that means. They did a really very good job of that. All right. So here, when you start this meeting, do you want the video for the host and participant to be on or off? Do you want them to be able to join with only telephone or audio or both? And then here's where you can enable a waiting room. So that's that private room that's waiting for you. And here's where you can set record the meeting automatically. And once you save this, then when you go back to your meetings, my meetings here, you'll see that meeting there. And then what you can do is you can go back in, and I don't want to do that right now because I don't want to share the information on the screen. But when you click that, you can click on it again. A box will open. It has all the information. You can copy the invitation, or you can, I believe you can send the invitation right there. It has, you know, a staff meeting, Monday staff meeting. It gives you the link. If there's a password, it's right there. It gives you all the numbers to dial in on the phone. Everything you need is right there. So if you set up a meeting, you save it, then you click back into it, and you'll see, I believe it says copy invitation or something like that. It's right in the middle on the right. Grab that, and then you can email it to people. Okay, so that's how that works. Now this is where the recordings go. So I clicked on recordings here on the left, and you can see I have a recording that's right here. And then my local recordings, they show you the path, and they show you the computer too, which is really good because you can see multiple computers, and it tells me what computer, so I don't have to go running around looking for it. Okay, let's see. I'm just looking at questions for a second. You don't have to have a pro account to schedule meetings, but you do have to have a pro account to have a personal meeting ID. All right. I'm going to go through this. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly because it's really pretty straightforward. So a lot of the defaults are here. So I went through, so two things. One, I didn't look at this for the first 3 years I used Zoom. All right. So I just used my personal meeting ID and it was fine. So please try not to be overwhelmed with everything because I know this is a lot. I'm just trying to meet everybody's need. So if you're more of a pro user and you want to, you know, go to the next level, I'm trying to do that too. So that's why there's so much. But really, if you have a link, you create a meeting, you create a link, you click the link, and you go in, you're pretty much good. So just keep that in mind. This is where you would set the defaults for your overall account. So here it says host video off and participant video off. If this were on and I would create a new meeting, the default would be taken from here. So here, you can just, I'm just gonna let you go through this. You can see this is where you set your password, which is not my actual password. You can embed the password into a meeting link so that people can just click right in instead of having to enter the password. That's a nice feature. And a lot of this is new because of everything that's going on. You can set a meeting reminder if you toggle this. And here's where you, here you prevent participants from saving chat. You allow private chat. This auto saves the chat. I do that because when I'm teaching something, the chat can be an important part of the playback. You can have a sound play when people come in the room or leave. You can enable file transfer. I've never used that. You can have a co-host. So for example, on this call, we have a couple of co-hosts, so they're able to control the meeting. So if you're going to have a really big meeting and you want someone to help you mute or unmute or move the slides, that's how you would do that. This is where polling is turned on. And for the person who was wondering why we didn't have polling, that's probably here. You can also always show the meeting control toolbar, which is a really good idea so people don't lose their Zoom. And again, this is where you manage the whiteboard and things like that. There's also a way to have breakout rooms. I've never used that. Zoom does do a lot more, but for this presentation, we're going to stop right about here. So actually, I forgot. I have one more thing really quick. All right, so here we are back at my presentation, and I just want to give you these tips for looking your best. So the first one is watch your camera angle. You really want the camera to be a little bit higher than your eyes. And on your laptop, if it's too low on your desk, put a box of Kleenex, prop a couple books, make sure people are have your full face. You want them to have your face and your shoulders, and just watch the angle. I've seen a lot of people, I'm not sure why, but they see themselves on the camera and the camera's literally looking up their nose. So don't do that. Pay attention to what's behind you. Absolutely. Make sure it's not distracting, or I have seen some people, they put a sheet up behind them because the private room in their house is not the prettiest. It might be the the storage room or something. So pay attention to that. It matters, and make sure that you adjust your lighting. And that is the end. So quickly, if you have a question for me, you can email me. If you'd like to subscribe to my newsletter, love to have you. You can just text Rocket Girl to that number there. The other thing is, if you go to rocketgirlsolutions.com, in the lower right-hand corner of my website, there's a place for you to get on my calendar if you'd like to talk with me about your business. It's not a sales call. I'm happy to talk to people about their businesses and in any way. SCORE, of course, is genius at that. But if you'd like to talk to me one-on-one, I'd be happy to do that. And I think we're going to have questions for 4 minutes, and then we're going to turn it back over to SCORE. Okay, so to invite someone, all you need is their email, correct? Yes. And yes, you need their email, and then you need the link and all the points of the invitation. So let me just look at these here. When I tried to use co-host, I got a message that said, oh, interesting. Okay, let me read the question. When I tried to use the co-host, I got a message that said the individual was not a Zoom client. It wouldn't take their email information. What should I do? I would ask them if they have an account. And if they don't, they might need to have a free account in order for that to happen. I don't actually know, because pretty much everybody that I work with has a Zoom account, so I haven't hit that. Okay, so thank you. Someone said it was excellent. You're welcome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Applause. You guys are really sweet. Can you use a background? And I do have a nice one, which, yes, you can definitely use a background. You can use a sheet. Okay, hold on. So I'm going to give you some links really quick here. Okay, so let's see, I'm going to do, can I do all? Let's see. Yes, okay. So here's one link right here. This is about how to share your phone screen. This one right here is all about waiting rooms and how that all works. And then this one, this is brand new. This is about how to keep uninvited guests out of your messages or out of your meetings. And so absolutely check those out, and just know we're in a very unusual situation right now. Things are changing all the time, and we just have to be patient with each other and think good thoughts. So someone asked me if I'm on LinkedIn. Absolutely, I'd love for you to connect with me. And am I going to grab the chats? Someone's asking that. I don't actually know if we are saving the chat, so I'll leave that up to SCORE. And this has been a pleasure, everybody. Really a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming and being a part of this. And now I'm going to turn it over to SCORE.
Great, thanks, Belinda. And that's obviously all the time we have for questions. And Belinda has been very kind to take them as we went along. But I'm sure there are still some unanswered questions out there. As a reminder, a recording of this webinar and the materials are available within a couple of days on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. And our next webinar will be on Tuesday, April 21st at noon. And the topic is how to get going with Google, with Nalini Gulzaran presenting. And again, SCORE does offer free individual counseling. So if you want to use the link on the screen or visit our website and click Request a Mentor, you can get that service. Also, we'd appreciate it if you could fill out the evaluations that are being sent at the end of this. They're very helpful to us. And on behalf of SCORE, I would like to thank all of you for attending our live webinar, and in special thanks to Belinda for presenting today. Stay well, everyone, and have a nice day. Thank you.